A very warm welcome. I'm Geeta Pensay and I'll be your host guiding you through this event. It's great to have so many of you back and some new faces joining us too, so welcome if you are new to us. Public sector digital transformation is being delivered to you by Public Sector Executive, and the day, as you can imagine, will be packed full of opportunities to network and acquire current sector knowledge, whether this knowledge is gained from our speakers or event partners in the digital marketplace. We'd like to thank the industry leaders who will be taking the time out today to speak to us and to share their invaluable insights. Now, the content standard on our PSE 365 platform means that all the content today is CPD certified. For every hour of content that you watch live, you will gain 1 CPD point, and your certificates will be available to you within 24 hours of the conference ending. Alongside the keynotes and panel discussions on the agenda for you today, we'll also have some fantastic networking opportunities in our speed networking function. It helps to extend the knowledge and connection shared today, which can be accessed at any time, ultimately growing our PSE 365 community. And on that note, let me give you a reminder about our PSE platform. You and your teams can access a wealth of resources as part of our on-demand content alongside the digital marketplace. Now, we really do value your views, so please feel free to share your thoughts on Twitter or LinkedIn. There is a hashtag, always a hashtag. Our hashtag is hashtag PSE-365. That's hashtag PSE-365, and we'd love to hear what you think, as well as hearing your thoughts and questions throughout the day to our many leaders during our panel discussions. So let's move on now to the focus of today. Highways are a crucial part of our economy, and ensuring our roads remain maintained falls under the responsibility of national highways and local authorities. Last year, the government spent over £1.1 billion on local roads in England. Now, as with most government bodies, funding is essential. National highways operate a 5-year funding period, which helps with building long-term relationships with suppliers, whilst local authorities, of course, operate year to year. Now, maintenance, especially with potholes, are problematic and costly, which is why the Local Government Association asked the government for an additional £130 million to fix 4 million potholes next year. However, the County Councils Network, CCN, called for an extra £500 million of new capital funding in the March 2023 budget to plug the spending gap. Now, a survey by the network found 85% of local authorities plan to reduce roads maintenance. And also next year, they might be scrapping or reviewing major highways projects. So the research shows that inflation is set to add at least £514 million to roads and infrastructure budgets in county areas this year and next. Capital funding has been £400 million lower in each of the last 2 years, despite a pledge by the government to invest an additional £500 million in road improvements each year. Now, the Chancellor did recognise the issue and announced an additional £200 million in the March budget for 2023 and 24 to tackle the curse of the potholes, which I'm sure many of us know or have experienced. The Chancellor also announced that £8.8 billion is being set aside for a second round of the City Region Sustainable Transport Settlements. Now, this will help to develop mass transit networks and sustainable transport options across England's city regions. So, questions. Overall, what does this mean for our highways? Are we to get a worthy transport network that we can be proud of? Many questions are being asked as to the impact on the environment, because transport is highlighted as a major contributor to carbon. How will funding achieve the goals? What are the challenges? And most importantly, what are the solutions? I'm going to move over now to our first keynote speech to pick up on some of these themes. I'd like to introduce Elliot Shaw, who is the Chief Customer and Strategy Officer for National Highways. A few words about Elliot before he joins us. Elliot is an experienced senior leader with deep expertise in strategy, development and implementation, regulatory and government affairs, and organisational transformation and governance, developed through working across the private, public and third sectors. So without further ado, let me welcome Elliot onto our virtual stage for our first keynote. Over to you, Elliot.
Thank you, Geeta, and good morning, everyone. I hope you're doing well. As Geeta said, I'm Elliot Shaw, so I'm Chief Customer and Strategy Officer at National Highways, and it's a real pleasure to be here and have the opportunity to open this Public Sector Highways Conference. And we all know that roads connect the country. They keep people and goods moving. They enable people to live their lives and businesses to trade. And I was going to talk a bit about the future of roads in my talk this morning, but I think sometimes it's also worth first taking a bit of a step back and reminding ourselves where we've come from. And this year we've got a great opportunity to do this because 2023 marks the 100th birthday of our road numbering system in the UK. So if our A roads were people, they'd soon be getting their birthday card from King Charles. And it's hard to imagine today, but before road numbering, keeping track of the condition of roads, even using roads, presented some really tricky challenges. Signage was inconsistent at best, it was often non-existent. So working out which road was which, and therefore the correct one to take, could be really, really difficult. The introduction of road numbering in 1923 brought about a step change in how our roads were managed and used. And then in 1936, the Trunk Roads Act created a national strategic road network. And a few weeks ago at National Highways, we delivered a crucial suite of documents that set out our future views on the future of the strategic road network. They're published on nationalhighways.co.uk, and you can access them right now if you'd like to take a look. The first of these documents is the Strategic Road Network Initial Report. This sets out our advice to government on our priorities for the third road investment period, RIS3, which covers 2025 to 2030. The second document is our Connecting the Country plan. This is our long-term strategic plan to 2050. And then there's not one, not two, but 20 route strategy initial overview reports. These give detailed evidence on the performance of our network. And finally, rounding off the list is our environmental sustainability strategy. And this showcases our vision for managing our network in a more sustainable way. All of these details National Highways' proposed direction of travel in the short and long term. But why am I telling you about this? Because it's mainly because when we shared these reports, it also launched the consultation period for the initial report and route strategies. So actually, for the next few weeks, you now have the chance to shape the future of strategic roads too. So what will RIS3 hold? Well, from a National Highways perspective, we think our purpose as an organisation will remain unchanged. We'll continue to connect the country. And our imperatives of safety, customer and delivery will all remain unchanged too. What do our customers tell us that they want? Well, they value having the basics done well. So their top concerns of safety, journey times and environment will be our priorities, which means ensuring the reliability, availability and integrity of our network. All of that will continue to be key. What does the government want? Well, it wants economic growth, and we need to support the government's levelling up agenda while enabling the UK to be internationally competitive. Roads have a really key role to play in that. We think demands for our roads will increase. Even the most conservative forecasts tell us that, road traffic is back to pre-COVID levels already. But we recognise that ever higher levels of social and environmental responsibility will be required of us too. But our network is also reaching maturity in its extent. So over time, we think our focus needs to really shift from building new roads to really making the most of what we have today. The initial report has all of the detail around all of this. And in the next few minutes, I'd like to share with you 5 priority areas that we propose we will work or use to work towards our long-term vision. Our first proposal is creating a step change in road safety. And safety will still be our core priority in the third road period. We want to continue reducing the number of people killed or seriously injured on our network. And that means, in particular, improving a number of A roads so they have enhanced safety ratings. Making the most of our network is our second proposal. We want to harness emerging technologies to operate increasingly connected roads. Our network is aging, so more proactive maintenance and renewals will be needed, and the technology on our network needs to become more resilient. All of this will be vital so we can continue to deliver safe and reliable journeys. Evolving our customer and community services is our third proposal for RIS3, and it involves improving data and real-time information that we provide to our customers. People's journeys don't tend to begin or end on our roads, so we aim to connect seamlessly with other transport networks as well. The fourth proposal is driving decarbonisation and environmental sustainability, and we continue to drive down our corporate maintenance and construction emissions whilst also facilitating low carbon travel. And our last proposal is taking a targeted approach to enhancing our network. We'll continue to invest in our network, particularly following the principles of PAS 2080 and only building where the problem can't be fixed by other approaches. We'll meet network needs by completing schemes committed as part of the road investment strategy process, invest in the Lower Thames crossing, but also we'd like to deliver a number of smaller value schemes that deliver local benefits. I particularly wanted to pick up two themes actually that are included within those priorities, but I'm really conscious are a focus for the conference today. So firstly, decarbonisation and then digital. And on decarbonisation, we know that transport is accountable for 27% of the UK's carbon emissions and 91% of that comes from road vehicles. The government's committed Britain to being a net zero economy by 2050. So what do? Do we switch off roads? And I know there are some people that would love to do that, but I think you and I know that roads are vital for our country. They're vital to economic growth. They're vital if the UK is to be a success in global markets. 9 times more freight is transported on our road network than it is on rail. So putting all of that onto freight, onto rail, or onto the seas and the sites, guys, simply is not feasible. I think the Committee on Climate Change said that rail freight could feasibly be at % over the coming decades. That actually takes less than 2% of HGVs off our roads. So our economy needs roads, our businesses need roads, and the millions of people who use them every day need roads. We can't switch them off, but we can decarbonise them. And we absolutely are. And our targets to achieve net zero carbon emissions cut across every facet of our business. We aim to achieve net zero for our own operations by 2030, for our maintenance and construction by 2040, and for travel on our network by 2050. So what are we doing to get there? Well, to be honest, we're going really big. We're being ambitious. So last year we achieved the world first. We became the first roads organisation in the world to achieve the PAS 2080 carbon accreditation. This globally recognised standard shows our determination to reduce carbon in the design, construction and operation of a strategic road network. And through more intelligent design, construction and use, we're already making great strides in reducing our construction emissions. We're bringing down corporate emissions too. In 21-22, we reduced our emissions by 58% against our baseline, working towards a 75% reduction by 24-25. National Highways is also the nominated delivery body for the Rapid Charging Fund. We're working with the Office for Zero Emission Vehicles to help deliver rapid electric vehicle charging network on the strategic road network. Over 900 million is being invested to upgrade grid connections at sites where there's currently insufficient power to meet future electric vehicle demand. And we're currently piloting a number of sites through the funding process. And what about commercial vehicles and freight? Huge amount going on. We're running electric van trials with a number of local authorities, which are proving to be very successful. And we're also part of the core delivery group of the Zero Emission Road Freight Trials, which is a DFT-funded project to pioneer cost-effective hydrogen and other zero-emission HGVs. So decarbonisation, a huge focus, but digital similarly a massive focus. And we know that digital data and technology is changing how our roads are designed, managed, operated and used. We launched our digital road strategy in 2021, and we're working hard to make that vision a reality. For a start, we're creating one of the largest fibre networks in England to provide connectivity, and we're using digital technology in more of our design and construction activities. For example, by using rapid engineering modelling, we're increasing the speed, quality and safety of road design, reducing the time it takes to produce operational concepts from months down to weeks. We're also using drones to build 3D maps of the network and sharing these with project teams to streamline processes. We're using things like off-site fabrication, modular construction, and soon connected and autonomous plant. And we want connected and autonomous plant to be the norm on our sites by 2035. It doesn't stop there. We're using artificial intelligence and machine learning to prolong the life of bridges, structures, and roads, which can be monitored remotely. And we're also improving how we communicate with our customers. We're striving to enable seamless end-to-end journeys by working with other transport networks and journey planners, the likes of Google's and Waze, so customers always have accurate information via their smartphone or sat-nav. So a huge amount going on the technology and digital, and as I said, some big priorities through the initial report. And all of this means that National Highways will need to change too. We're evolving from being a road builder and operator to being a service provider committed to make road transport safer, more reliable and ready for the future. And looking ahead to the fourth road investment strategy, we're sure things will look quite different for us. We'll be starting to see the growing impact of decarbonisation and our environmental commitments. And digital data and technology will be centre stage in the way we work. So the end of the current road period and the early part of RIS3 will be a key time for ensuring we're as well placed as possible for what has to come. So as we look forward, it's clear challenge and change will be consistent, but so too will opportunity. So let's start shaping the future of roads. You can start right away. Please download the initial report and the route strategies from the National Highways website and get involved in the consultations. The DFT-led consultation on the initial report ends on the 13th of July. I hope you have a great time at today's conference, and Geeta, back over to you.
Thank you so much, Elliot. What a brilliant way to start our day, and also a very happy centenary to the road numbering of our roads in England. I'm going to remember that. That is my fact of the day. So we're going to move on now to our very first panel discussion, our leaders debate, which is digitalisation in partnership with Brightly Software Inc. Now, digitalisation of the road systems has many benefits. In the medium to long term, it can minimise disruptions in terms of construction, management, and particularly operation of road systems by using modular off-site solutions. Technologies such as mobility as a service and other digital platforms allow for new services and mobility solutions to be introduced quicker, meaning digitalisation can extract added value from road investments. Digital roads will harness data, technology, and connectivity to improve the way the National Highway Strategic Road Network, SRN, is designed, built, operated and used. Now, this vision is also supporting a wide range of government policies, including net zero, which is of course something that Elliot was speaking quite a lot about there. So digitalisation really does affect everyone, and as such we collectively need to embrace and understand how we can all play a part in building our future networks. So to discuss all these topics with us around digitalisation, I'm going to introduce now our panellists. We have Hannah Winstanley, who is Senior Director for Client Services Centre with Brightly Software Inc. Carol Valentine, who is Business Innovation and Technology Manager for Highways Kent County Council, and Paul Chandler, who is the Head of Traffic Management Digital Services for the Department for Transport. And before we begin to hear from them, just a reminder that this debate is all about involving you. So if there's anything that our leaders are talking about that you want to ask a question about or share your thoughts, please do. On your screen will be the Q&A function. Those who've been with us before will know how it works, but there is a Q&A function for anyone that is new. Just pop your question in and I'll try and put as many of those questions to our leaders in this discussion. So first of all, welcome to you all. I thought it'd be great to just get a brief sense of what you do and how it connects to digitalisation. Let's start with you, Hannah.
Thank you, Geeta. So my name is Hannah Winstanley and I work for Brightly Software, and we provide software to local authorities and national highways and other contractors to manage the work and operations that they do on the highways. And it's not necessarily just the highways, it's everything you can see from the trees to the street furniture to the street lights. So it's making sure that all of those assets are in a condition which are, create a safe environment for citizens to use, as well as making sure they're ready and viable, and looking at the whole life of that particular asset. So is it going to last for another 10 years, 20 years, or when do we need to start to think about replacement or maintenance of that particular asset? So core focus is that asset management system and making sure that people are being deployed out onto the road safely and efficiently, and starting to bring in those new technologies like IoT to sort of reduce the amount of time that people have to go out and be on the road, and make it a safer environment to people to work in.
That's fantastic. Thank you, Hannah. Over to you, Carol.
Yeah, I'm Carol Valentine from Kent County Council. I lead on business innovation and technology. So it's interesting listening to Elliot's presentation, because we're looking ahead in KCC at how we can better utilise data, how we can use technology to improve the efficiency and the effectiveness of the work that we do in Kent. So part of my role is working across the business, working with partners such as Brightly, our partners Amy, to see how we can bring best value to the contract. I'll talk a little bit, hopefully, about some of the things that we've been doing, but it's really to have a bit of that horizon scanning, looking at how we can better do things that maybe we've done in a very manual way in the past. How can we bring digitization and also other technology into the service that we deliver? I mean, Kent is one of the largest road networks in the country, and we're conscious of things like budgets, carbon, all the other things that I think everyone's well aware of. So how do we use new technology to help us deliver not just a better service in terms of our repairs, but also better customer satisfaction?
Brilliant. Thank you, Carol. And finally, Paul, just a little bit about what you do at the Department for Transport, just to share your experience with us.
So I work on the Street Manager project, which some people might know. That is sort of planning and managing roadworks for highway authorities and utilities. And then in my spare time, apart from that, I'm working on the digital traffic orders project as well. So we're trying to take those traffic orders that are sort of paper-based at the moment, talking about speed limits and parking restrictions, and trying to digitize that and provide data to people to make that available to everyone. So that's the two projects we've got on the boil at the moment.
Brilliant. Thank you so much. So let's get started. And again, if you do have any questions, do use the Q&A function, the Q&A Ask Your Question box, and I'll try and put those to our panelists. Hannah, let's start with you. Many local authorities have got this digital first strategy. How are you seeing this play out with the clients that you're working with?
Yeah, so I think it's actually a bit of a mixed bag, and you have clients like Kent and at the county level, Hampshire, who are really kind of leading the way with their digital strategy, and have teams who are really familiar with using data. They're hiring people with those analytic skills. They're using software and other tools to be able to do that. In Hampshire, I know they've got robotics. So they're looking ahead at these different sort of ways in which they can become more efficient and use technology. You have some of the customers that we work with, maybe on the smaller side, so the non-Mets or the districts, where we're still converting them from using Excel spreadsheets to manage their data and taking them onto the journey of using software. But what you kind of see across the board everywhere is that people are on this journey, or they have a plan to reach digitization. It's a bit like net zero in a way, where it's kind of like, there's lots of different moving parts. So you have pockets where an authority might be doing really well in one area from using sort of technology, where they're still paper-based in the depot, or so there's a kind of plan that people are going through, and you're seeing various degrees of progress, really.
Yeah, and Paul, I saw you nodding quite a bit there. What are you seeing in terms of the biggest blockers to digital change?
Well, firstly, Hannah's right, and you can have one area of a highway authority that's like super switched on. Oh yeah, we've totally digitized. We do all this stuff, and then I wouldn't assume with another project that I'm working on that it would be the same, because it might be a totally different area of the council. and a lot of work is so personality based, isn't it? Like, oh, there just happened to be that person that was working in that HA or that business, and they were super switched on, super into innovation, digitizing, whatever it might be. So yeah, that would be one lesson. I guess the biggest blocker is, I mean, let's be honest, we've seen since 2007 that reduction in what central government gives to authorities, councils. That wasn't me, guys, and that makes it a challenge. So when you're going out there and you're saying, so my digital traffic orders project will be going out there, and it will be voluntary when we first build it, with any luck, and people will be saying, unless you're going to compel me to do it with legislation, what I can't get the funding to do this, even if I would like to. So yeah, I mean, it's a bit of a cop out, isn't it? But I guess funding is that blocker.
Yeah. And let's go over to Carol, because, Hannah just name checked you as one of those councils that is actually leading the way. And I'm sure you also face all the challenges as well. You led on an Adept Live Labs programme, which involved bringing digitalisation to the work you do in Kent on the roads. Can you tell us a bit about what that is, and how that's helped you and how you've rolled it out?
Yeah, so we were very fortunate to bid for some money from Adept as part of their Smart Places programme. That was in 2019. We were funded for 2 years and just under £2 million. And what we were able to do with that was to take a sort of a multi-pronged approach to try to bring technology into that highway space. So I guess our centerpiece was a digital platform. So it's a cloud-based platform which was able to ingest data from our works asset management system, which is our sort of repository of all of our assets, our highway assets, and able to bring in other data alongside that, then use data analytics to sort of give us a visualization for making decisions. So it sounds a little bit complicated, but in fact it wasn't, although it does cost quite a bit of money, as Paul says, and I think that's always going to be a little bit of a blocker. But as well as sort of creating this digital platform, which we're still using to this day, we're also able to trial a number of sort of sensors using the sort of Internet of Things. We trial some drones for picking up carriageway defects. We carried out sort of various gully sensors. We use carbon tech for our drainage assets. So we were able to trial lots of different types of technology to see whether or not we could bring them into the work that we're doing in highways. In terms of where we've got to with that, I mean, a lot of that's what we've done there has become business as usual. So we use, for example, vivacity cameras, which are sort of multimodal traffic counting. We were able to purchase those, and we still use them now for our safety schemes and our major projects. So I guess our core objective was around improving the efficiency and effectiveness, and also, as I said before, improving customer satisfaction. And that's really important. I think, Geeta, you mentioned, and maybe Elliot mentioned, potholes. And as a previous highway manager, I know very much that this is always at the forefront. So that we can do to help the customer to understand what we're doing. But also, customers are always interested to know that we are trying different ways, that we are looking at bringing technology to improve what we do. I mean, just one example of what we did in terms of smart materials, we trialed something called GIF Pave, which is graphene enhanced asphalt. Sort of 2 to 3 year times longer lasting than the normal hot rolled asphalt that we use. And okay, it's going to take a while to see whether or not that works. But if that does work, and we're doing another trial ourselves, not without the Adept funding, then that's going to obviously improve how much that roads can be used. It reduces the amount of time we've got to go in and repair, and reduce potholes. So it's that sort of broader thinking of looking at all different types of things that we can bring to improve the output that we have as a highway authority.
Fantastic. Thank you, Carol. Hannah, I was just wondering, we just heard there from Carol about all the things that they're trying. And of course, Kent has, as Carol said, a huge road network. But you also mentioned that you've got, lots of different councils, some of them are smaller in their reach potentially and in their budgets. And how do you go from that first moment where they're still really grappling with Excel documents, and help them make that transition? And what are the kind of biggest barriers in a time where our councils are under so much pressure?
Yeah, I think a lot of it is, has to be good change management, where you are really taking people along with you. Communication is key. Quite often with these projects is that there can be anything from sort of 5 to 12-month projects where you're rolling out a new system for people, and you at the beginning you kind of show it to people and you tell them what's happening, and you have this dip where a lot of work is going on in the background to migrate data and get it working, but people don't know what's going on. And I just think it's so important to make sure you're taking the workforce with you, so they know it's not happening to them but with them, and so they know every step of the way, like what's happening, what's it going to mean to me, what are the benefits that I'm going to be contributing to, what is the overall picture that we're going to get after we're starting to use this technology. Is it going to be greater data? Is it going to save me time? How will it affect me in my working day? So I do think it's all about making sure that you're setting the right expectations for change, and that they are aware that they are going to see a benefit at the end of it, especially when they have been so used to using paper or Excel, and they kind of think, well, this is working for me. Why would I change? So very much a process, and communication is key.
Okay, I was going to go over to Paul, but I think just lost his picture, so I'll let him either come back, or we want to be able to see him if I'm asking a question. So let me go back to you, Carol, because one of the things that Elliot talked in great detail about really is about the responsibility to reduce carbon output and those kind of net zero targets that they have on a kind of an England-wide scale. But for Kent, how are your innovations around digitalisation helping you meet those targets for the council? And what are your targets?
Well, I think like many authorities, we've got that 2030 target for reducing our carbon to net zero. And of course, that's a challenge. We recognise that highways is a large contributor towards the carbon outputs for the council. So certainly when we were looking at our innovations through Live Labs 1, carbon wasn't necessarily the focus, but we were conscious that we wanted to remove a lot of traffic off the road. So one of the things, certainly with our looking at the route reports, was one of the things that we trialed, trying to pick up potholes just as people are going along, rather than sending someone out to do that. It's the same with the work that we're doing with our drainage asset. We've got over 200,000 gullies and drains around the county. Well, visiting every single one of those, we can't do that. And of course, there's going to be a carbon impact, because a lot of our outputs are built into the materials, as well as built into the tailpipe emissions that we know are going out. So we want to reduce the amount of time that we actually get out, do more that we can do, actually by being able to analyze data in an intelligent way. So when we can view that data on a platform, then we can determine when we want to make an intervention. So in the longer term, we will get those benefits. But certainly it's something we are looking at. We're working very closely with our suppliers. One of our suppliers, certainly, who does our surface treatments, they're looking at net zero. So we're working not just with what we do, because most of our work is delivered by our contractors. So we're working with the contractors for them to bring in methods that's going to reduce the carbon impact.
Brilliant. Thank you, Carol. Hannah, on a kind of wider scale with the customers that you work with, how do you feel local authorities can meet those sustainability goals?
Yeah, so we're seeing very much a kind of top level need to be able to do something, but then on the ground, people not knowing necessarily what to do. And we're trying to help our customers really look at how we can use the data to calculate the carbon footprint of all the different operations that are done and the different activities. So you can start to make decisions on, or when you start to sort of put that layer of carbon cost against the cost of actually maintaining and operating those assets, sometimes it can be surprising where you actually there is a greater carbon cost than you would imagine. We've seen that Carol mentioned the tailpipe emissions, and really in reactive maintenance, we're seeing in some sort of county levels, they're doing sort of 1,000 miles a day to go and do sort of attend and repair on a reactive basis, whereas the planned maintenance is a quarter of that. And so you kind of think that there's got to be a way to sort of like shift some of that work to be able to, excuse me, shift how we operate and how we would actually plan with a carbon outlook in mind. The other things that we've certainly seen is that when you're talking about engagement, and I mentioned the change management before, and actually it was funny that Paul mentions sort of personalities, but when you are going and talking to people about changing or adding in particular data or data collection to enhance the information that we have around the carbon footprint of the operations, it's such a different conversation that you're having with the operatives when you're saying, we're doing this work, or we're making this change because it's going to have an impact on the environment. It's a bigger picture kind of sense. You're not going in saying we're doing it to save costs, because a lot of the time people are like, well, so what, how does that really impact me? But if you're talking about, making savings so that we can actually all head towards saving the planet, then it's a completely different mindset. So I think the engagement is there on the ground. So people are wanting to do something, and we shouldn't underestimate that. So we need to kind of join up the sort of like the people who want to do something and the top management, and really start to make a change so we can see and start to monitor where we are spending our carbon costs.
Brilliant, thank you. And I think we've got Paul back. Paul, I was just wondering, we've talked a lot about the different routes that we can take towards digitalisation. I just wonder, what's the most satisfying thing about introducing digital change? Oh, I think that maybe Paul has frozen. Never mind. I will go back to our other panelists, and perhaps we'll get him for the end. And just a reminder that we've got about 8 minutes left. So if you do want to put any questions to Carol and Hannah, and if Paul returns as well, please do pop them in the Ask Your Question box. Carol, just looking to the future for Kent Council, what do you think you'll be doing in the way of digitalisation in terms of highways and your roads, new things that you're looking at, what you want to grow?
Well, we'll certainly continue to develop our highways asset data management system, our cloud-based system, because we know there's more functionality that we can have in that. It's already being used extensively by our safety schemes teams, so they're able to see all their crash data together with local inquiries, but it's all visualized, and it's helping them to make real decisions about where they need to go and do the work. And I was thinking about what Hannah was saying about getting the workforce involved. When I started on the Live Labs project, initially it was supposed to be just for our highways maintenance team, but gradually that spread across other parts into transportation, because we got people involved and they were really interested. So I think it's about getting ideas from the teams and then working with our suppliers. One of the things that we're doing at the moment, working with Brighton and a company called Jardu, is we're looking at how we can improve. Talked a lot about the customer experience, but it's really important in a local authority. But we're looking at our works asset management system, how we can use the data that's sitting in the works asset management system to inform the customer. So we get somewhere in the region of 10,000 inquiries a month, just for inquiries in Kent, around the roads. A good number of those are potholes. So we want to make it an easier journey for the customer. They make the inquiry. We've got masses of information sitting within our works asset management system. How can we bring those together to reduce the amount of inquiries that we get from customers? So it might sound, how's that really affecting our overall service, but it does massively, because we want to make sure that the customer gets a better experience. So that's digitizing, looking at what we've already got and how we better use data that we've got. When we were doing the Live Labs program, we developed a number of personas around our customers, our elected members, our parishes, and very much use those personas to inform the work that we're doing with Brighton and that we're doing with Jardu. So we're really excited about that. We've got a product that we're actually we've used in a test environment, and we've had really good feedback. And we're looking to bring that into a live environment. The other thing that we're doing a lot of work on is our drone trials. And I think I heard Elliot say that they use drones in national highways. Now, for us, the drone is just a tool that we've got some really good kit on that we can then use AI, machine learning, and so on to look at our carriageway, the state of the carriageway. So we're just about to start our phase 3. We've done 2 phases just to prove as a proof of concept. The third phase is going to run for a year to 18 months, and we're running the drones and these really high spec cameras and all the AI that goes behind it over our 2 sections of high-speed road in Kent, and be picking up lots of assets, including utility assets, and then just seeing what intelligence we get from that and how we can use that. Again, there's a point being made that we only go out when we need to, and we can pick up masses of data at the same time using the technology that the drones and those cameras can bring. So I'm really excited about that, and we'll be able to look at the results of that going on in the future. So last thing to say, we have an innovation board in Kent that I chair, and that brings together our highways colleagues, and there's lots of things we're doing with robots. There's things we're doing with I think you mentioned mobility as a service. We've got a big project running around that. So there's lots of things going on in Kent that we'll be rolling out over the next few months and years.
Fantastic. So many tangible examples of what you're doing there, Carol. And I think it's really interesting as well, hearing what you were saying about potholes, because, you know, the reality is that when many people think of their local authority, that is one of the priorities in terms of roads. And you forget to hear you say that you get 10,000 complaints in 1 month around this very issue. There's a way of kind of helping reduce those complaints through the use of digitalisation. That's fantastic.
Can I just say one thing, Geeta, that it's inquiries and all complaints. I wouldn't like anyone to think that everyone's so dissatisfied with our roads in Kent, but they are inquiries.
That is a very important correction there. Inquiries, thank you. And Paul, hoping that you can hear me now. Excellent. So it would just be good, you know, we've not got lots of time left, but to get a sense, because we've talked a lot about, you know, the innovations that we're hearing around digitalisation, but what do you see as the core benefits? You know, what is satisfying when local authorities adopt this in terms of highways?
There's just so much out there that we can do, you know, and once you become digitized and once you plug in, we can start to suck that data out. Data consumers can get it out there. So I'll give you one example. We don't have a national speed limit data set. You know, you might think, oh, but I'm on my phone when I'm driving and I can see what the speed limit is. Most of the time, Google or whomever is just inferring that from the speed that vehicles are doing on the road. So one of the things I hope to deliver with traffic order digitization is that national set of speed limit data down the line, you know. And again, I was speaking to a company that are taking the like the chip that's in every car, and they ping it every few seconds, and they can find out things about average speeds, length of queues, sort of sweat paths in terms of, you know, how places go around corners and things like that. And they can do all this stuff. And there's all this information out there, and there's all this information that could be out there, but we need to make those steps towards digitization of the road network before we can start to see the benefits for the things I've just mentioned. You know, maybe you mentioned autonomous vehicles when I wasn't on the call, but, you know, the move to autonomous vehicles and all that kind of stuff that we're going to see over the next few years.
We actually haven't mentioned that yet, and that is a real hot topic, isn't it?
It is indeed. I try not to use it as a crutch to lean on when talking about traffic order digitization, but it is a kind of building block as we move towards those rules of the road.
Yeah, brilliant. Thank you, Paul. And Hannah, you know, one of the things that can happen is when there's a lot of data that's being collected, people can feel quite overwhelmed with how to use that data in an effective way. So how do you help your clients?
I think, you know, we love data as an organisation, but it's got to be purposeful. And I think, you know, we can collect so much data now. We need to be mindful that that also has a carbon footprint. I think, you know, that kind of, it's kind of like the equivalent of all the emissions that come out of India is all of our data, is the sort of data. sort of carbon footprint. So we do need to be mindful about what is useful and what tells a story. How can we use the data to be able to provide evidence for extra funding or for making a change or changing policy or communicating out to customers and to residents to say, this is why we're making a change. So I do think it's being able to decipher what data you're recording and then telling a story with that data. What does it mean? And a lot of the time it does come down to visualization. You know, people can understand and can really kind of like pick up a concept when it's really kind of like stark facts and figures. You know, we actually say, okay, right, I wasn't aware that, you know, 60% of all of the material, you know, the emissions that come out of my materials is actually in the steel that I'm putting in the gantries or the road barriers. It's kind of like it's being able to present the data in a way that is meaningful.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I think we're almost at the end of this panel discussion. And just to finish off, really, if you could just share, you know, a few words on why you think this is really important. Carol, over to you first.
No, thank you. Yeah, I think this is really important because we've got to look forward. The ways that the things that we've done in the past just aren't going to work in the future. And if we think if we just took the carbon and the net zero as a target, we're never going to achieve that by doing things the way we've done them in the past. So I think looking forward, looking at technology, looking at digitalisation, I think is a way that we can start to do that. If I could just mention, I talked about Live Labs 1. There is a Live Labs 2 being run by Adept, and that has got a laser sharp focus on carbon reduction. There'll be lots of information coming out about that, and I think all authorities can benefit from. So if people can look out for that, whether that's at Highways UK or whether it's, you know, white papers that are going to be published, that'll be a really good way for people to sort of join in that agenda if they're sort of early on that journey, and understand where they could take their own local authority.
That's really helpful. Thank you, Carol. And Paul, you know, what would you leave us with in terms of the importance of digitalisation?
If you think back to our keynote, one of the themes there was the government's drive for economic growth. So I'd certainly echo Carol on net zero, but yeah, you know, to drive that economic growth, we need to make that move to digitization to get that data and kind of be at the forefront of that, as God forbid I use this term, UK PLC.
Okay, thank you. And over to you, Hannah.
I just think, you know, it can be such an exciting a future for us all. If you look back just in the past, I mean, my children certainly can't imagine that we used to take photos and have to go and wait to get them developed to see if it came out all right. You know, so it's and things like with the parking where you go in and the ANPR is kind of opening the barriers for you. It's all that convenience that will come with digitization that we just need to celebrate and know that there's more to come.
Brilliant. That's a great tangible example of something that has definitely changed. Thank you so much. Thank you so much to Hannah, Carol and to Paul as well for kicking off our day with our first leaders debate. We are actually going to take a short break now, time to digest what's been covered, but if you do have a chance, do check out our speed networking function, opportunity to connect with others, and we will be back at 10:40 for our panel on design and construction. So we'll see you then. Thank you very much.